They escorted me out of the office with a hulking security guard whose face looked like he was chewing rocks, clutching a half-eaten Taco Bell box in his free hand. That was 6 weeks ago. But really, this story begins with a cheap router that caught fire in my basement apartment 10 years ago, when I accidentally invented something that would later help an international logistics company avoid a billion-dollar lawsuit. And today, I just took my company back. For exactly $1. My name is Claire Monroe, a 32-year-old electromechanical engineer from Milwaukee. Not the glamorous type you'd see in tech magazines or giving TED Talks. I'm the kind who used to spend Friday nights debugging circuit boards while my college roommates hit the clubs. After graduation, I couldn't land a job at any of the big tech firms. My resume was solid, but I lacked that certain pedigree that gets you past HR algorithms. So I settled for a tiny consulting gig that barely covered rent on my basement apartment, a place where the ceiling was so low I could touch it without fully extending my arm. On particularly cold Wisconsin nights, the heating system would go haywire. The landlord's solution? Put on another sweater. So I took matters into my own hands and installed a network of temperature sensors throughout the apartment, connected to a central hub I built from scavenged parts. One night, my cheap router caught fire. Not a dramatic blaze, just enough smoke to wake me and ruin my only decent shirt hanging nearby. I had to rebuild the entire system, and while reconfiguring the data flow between sensors, I stumbled upon something interesting. The routing algorithm I created didn't just optimize for temperature stability. It predicted congestion points and rerouted data automatically. I stayed up for 3 days straight, fueled by instant ramen and discount energy drinks, refining this algorithm. What emerged was PathSync, a software that could predict congestion and automatically optimize coordination of goods in real time. I wasn't thinking about logistics companies then. I was just trying to keep my apartment from freezing or burning down. On a whim, I showed it to a small local delivery company. The owner, Frank, an old-school guy with calloused hands and a perpetual coffee stain on his shirt collar, agreed to test it on 3 of his trucks. "If it works, I'll buy you dinner," he said. "If it doesn't, you're buying me whiskey." 2 weeks later, Frank was buying me the most expensive steak in Milwaukee. His drivers had cut delivery times by 17% and fuel costs by nearly 22%. Word spread through the industry like wildfire. Within months, I had offers from mid-sized logistics companies wanting to license the technology. But then Sky Freight Logistics came calling, a global giant with a fleet that circled the planet daily. Their initial offer seemed generous, $2.5 million for PathSync. But my instincts told me the technology was worth far more. I reached out to Gloria Weiss, a sharp-tongued attorney I'd met at a tech meetup who specialized in IP law. "They're lowballing you," Gloria said over coffee. "This could revolutionize global logistics. Don't sell yourself short." We countered with what seemed like an absurd proposal. Sky Freight could acquire PathSync for just $1, but I would retain 15% equity in the company, ownership of the core patent, a position as chief technology strategist, and buried on page 37 of our agreement, a clause stating that if I was terminated without cause, I could buy back the entire company for $1. "They won't read to page 37, Gloria winked. "Corporate lawyers skim the equity and IP sections, then let the executives make the call." She was right. Sky Freight's team was more focused on the publicity of acquiring the hot new logistics tech than on the fine print. They signed within a week. For the first 2 years, everything was fantastic. I had resources I'd never dreamed of, a team of brilliant engineers, state-of-the-art facilities, and a global platform for PathSync. The technology was implemented across Sky Freight's operations, reducing costs by hundreds of millions and preventing countless delivery delays. My small team operated with surprising autonomy. Miguel, my lead engineer, became my right hand, a coding genius with a knack for translating my abstract ideas into elegant solutions. We expanded PathSync's capabilities, adding predictive maintenance for vehicles and intelligent cargo handling. Then came the new CEO, Graham Huxley. a Harvard Business School graduate with slicked-back hair and a vocabulary straight from management textbooks. He spoke in PowerPoint slides. Synergistic opportunities and leveraging core competencies were his favorite phrases. At first, I tried to see the positive. New leadership could bring fresh perspectives, right? But within months, the culture shifted dramatically. Technical projects were slashed in favor of a global branding campaign with the tagline, "Shipping should feel as smooth as yoga." I watched in disbelief as millions were poured into Instagram influencer partnerships, while my requests for additional engineering resources were denied. Miguel and I were increasingly sidelined from strategic decisions. "They don't understand what makes this company valuable," Miguel said one evening as we worked late. "They think it's the logo and the marketing, not the technology." The following week, Miguel resigned after his department was reorganized and his role replaced by what Graham called an investment advisory chatbot. I felt increasingly isolated, the only one still fighting for PathSync's technical integrity. Then came the email. An executive assistant accidentally included me on an internal thread titled Founder Transition Plan. The message outlined a strategy to gradually minimize Monroe's influence while retaining patent benefits. That night, I went home and dug out my original contract. I reread Section 27B, right of repurchase in event of termination without cause. Gloria had insisted on this clause, calling it our nuclear option. At the time, it seemed like an unnecessary precaution. I called Gloria with just one sentence. "Get the paperwork ready. They're about to make a mistake." 2 weeks later, I was summoned to a 4 p.m. Friday meeting with Graham and the newly appointed COO, Tanya Voss, a woman whose background was in fashion retail, not logistics. "Claire," Graham began, not quite meeting my eyes. "As part of our leadership streamlining initiative, we're eliminating redundant strategic positions." Translation: I was fired. "We'll need your access card immediately," Tanya added, her voice clinical. "Security will escort you to collect your personal items." I simply nodded, keeping my face neutral despite the adrenaline surging through my veins. As the hulking security guard led me out, I clutched a white envelope containing a single check for $1 that Gloria had prepared. Monday morning, Skyfreight received a certified letter. "I, Claire Monroe, hereby exercise my right under Section 27B to repurchase PathSync for the sum of $1. Check enclosed." Graham reportedly laughed when he saw it. Tanya called it a cheap PR stunt, but Skyfreight's legal department wasn't laughing. The problem? Skyfreight had never fully completed the legal merger. PathSync remained a separate legal entity, and the patent had never been properly transferred. I was still the sole owner of the core technology. Within days, the story leaked to a tech forum. Founder reclaims company for $1 due to legal oversight. Major clients began calling, concerned about the status of their PathSync implementations. The engineering team, many loyal to Miguel and me, began submitting resignations. Skyfreight's investors demanded an emergency meeting. Graham resigned. Tanya took indefinite leave. Their stock dropped 27% in a single day. Meanwhile, I secured office space 2 buildings down from Skyfreight's headquarters and rehired my original team, including Miguel. Our new logo, a burning gear with the number 1 in the center, a symbol of our rebirth. The media dubbed me the Patent Queen. Venture capital firms flooded my inbox with investment offers, but I was selective this time, partnering only with those who valued innovation over quick profits. 6 months later, I was invited to give the keynote at a tech innovation conference. I recounted the journey from the burning router to Clause 27B. As I finished, I held up the framed $1 check, the most valuable dollar I'd ever spent. "The most important thing I've learned," I told the audience, "is that true innovation isn't about the technology itself. It's about people who understand its value. Never let anyone convince you that you're replaceable when you're the one who built the foundation." The applause was deafening. Today, PathSync is valued at over $4 billion. We've expanded into aerospace logistics, emergency response coordination, and urban planning. The technology that began in my freezing basement apartment now helps coordinate humanitarian aid deliveries and optimizes public transportation in major cities. I still keep that router, charred and useless, on my desk as a reminder that sometimes the most valuable inventions arise from solving our own problems. And occasionally, when visiting potential clients, I bring along a single-dollar bill. This, I tell them, is how much it cost me to reclaim a billion-dollar company. Imagine what else we might accomplish together. People often ask if I hate Graham and Tanya for what they did. The truth is, I'm grateful. Their short-sightedness created the opportunity for me to build something better, something true to my original vision. Miguel is now my CTO, overseeing a team of over 100 brilliant engineers. Frank, the delivery company owner who first believed in PathSync, sits on our board of advisors. And Gloria? She's our chief legal counsel, ensuring that every contract we sign protects innovation above all else. As for that security guard who escorted me out with his Taco Bell box, I hired him too. Turns out Dave was working 3 jobs to put his daughter through college. Now he heads our office security team and his daughter interns in our engineering department. The basement apartment where it all began? I bought the building last year and converted it into affordable housing for engineering students. Each unit comes equipped with the best heating system money can buy. And, of course, the fastest internet connection in the city. Sometimes I sit in my office late at night, looking out at the Milwaukee skyline, and think about that scared young woman who couldn't get past HR algorithms. The one who built temperature sensors because her landlord wouldn't fix the heating. The one who never imagined that a burning router would change her life. I wish I could tell her that all those nights debugging circuit boards while others partied would pay off. That her weird obsession with optimization algorithms would matter. That one day, people would listen. But mostly, I wish I could tell her about Clause 27B, that sometimes, the most important lines are the ones nobody expects you to include. And that sometimes, the most valuable things cost exactly $1. The next morning, after my keynote speech, I woke up to find the Naurstiakro patent queen trending on social media. Thousands of young engineers and entrepreneurs shared stories of being undervalued and overlooked. They adopted the burning gear with the number 1 as their symbol of resilience. I hadn't planned to become the face of a movement, but there I was. Television interviews, podcast appearances, requests to write a book. The attention was overwhelming, but I recognized the responsibility that came with this platform. So I established the PathSync Foundation, dedicating $50 million to support young innovators from unconventional backgrounds. Our first initiative, providing legal support to help inventors protect their intellectual property. The next revolution won't come from privileged graduates of elite universities. I told the board, it will come from people solving real problems in basement apartments and garage workshops across the world. When reporters ask about my overnight success, I laugh. There's nothing overnight about a decade of work. There's nothing sudden about thousands of hours spent coding while friends moved forward in their careers. There's nothing magical about persistence. What happened with Skyfreight wasn't luck. It was preparation meeting opportunity. It was Gloria's foresight and my willingness to play the long game. It was understanding that sometimes you have to let others underestimate you. Never mistake kindness for weakness, my grandfather used to say, and never correct someone who's underestimating you. I live by those words now. I let potential partners and competitors see the friendly Midwestern woman with the slightly outdated wardrobe. I let them assume I got lucky with one good algorithm. I let them think I'm not paying attention when they talk down to my team. And then I let our results speak for themselves. Last month, a major competitor tried to poach Miguel with an offer triple his current salary. When he declined, their CEO called me directly. "What are you paying him?" he demanded. "It's not about the money," I replied. "It's about building something that matters." The CEO scoffed. "Everyone has a price." "That's where you're wrong," I said. "The best people aren't looking for a price. They're looking for purpose." After hanging up, I found Miguel in the lab, working on our next-generation predictive model. "They offered you 3 times your salary," I said. He nodded without looking up from his screen. and I'd have made 3 times the money doing 1/3 as much good. That's the culture we've built at PathSync, a place where the work itself is the reward, where solving real problems takes precedence over inflating stock prices or appeasing shareholders. Of course, not everyone shares this vision. Last week, a venture capitalist cornered me at a conference. "You could be the next Amazon if you just focus on scaling," he insisted, waving his hands for emphasis. "You're leaving billions on the table with this slow growth approach." I smiled. "We're not trying to be the next anything. We're the first PathSync." He looked genuinely confused, as if the concept of not wanting to dominate every market was incomprehensible. That night, I received a text from Gloria. "Another acquisition offer, $7 this time. Want me to frame their letter next to your $1 check?" I laughed and replied, "Save the frame." Something tells me the offers are going to keep getting bigger. The truth is, I'm not interested in selling. Not for $7 billion, not for $70 billion. What we're building is more valuable than any acquisition offer could reflect. We're creating technology that helps deliver medicine to remote villages during natural disasters. Systems that reduce carbon emissions from global shipping by millions of tons annually. Algorithms that ensure food reaches people who need it most with minimal waste. Money can't buy the satisfaction of knowing your work matters. It can't replace the pride of building something that helps others. And it certainly can't compete with the joy of proving wrong everyone who ever said you were replaceable. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Graham and Tanya had actually read page 37. If they'd realized the power of Clause 27B before making their move. Would I still be working at Skyfreight, fighting for resources and respect? Would PathSync have become what it is today? I'll never know for sure, but I suspect things unfolded exactly as they needed to. Sometimes you need to be pushed out of one door to find a better one waiting. Last week, I received an email from a 16-year-old girl in Detroit who built a distributed water quality monitoring system for her community after discovering lead contamination. She'd read about my story and implemented her own version of Clause 27B in her first contract with a local environmental agency. "I made them sign it without reading the whole thing," she wrote, "just like you did." I immediately offered her our first PathSync Young Innovator Fellowship, including college tuition and a guaranteed internship. Because talent can come from anywhere, but opportunity often doesn't follow. As I sit here now, looking at the framed dollar bill on my wall, I'm reminded that value isn't always measured in currency. Sometimes it's measured in impact, sometimes in vindication, and sometimes in the sweet satisfaction of knowing you were right all along. The cheap router that caught fire in my basement apartment didn't just lead to PathSync. It ignited something in me, a belief that with enough persistence, intelligence, and strategic thinking, even the most underestimated person can change the world. Or at the very least, reclaim what's rightfully theirs for exactly $1. I still keep that security guard's half-eaten Taco Bell box, vacuum-sealed and mounted in a shadow box in my office. Visitors often ask about this strange memento. It's a reminder, I tell them, that some people will be eating lunch while they think they're escorting you to the exit, but you might be walking toward a new beginning. Most don't understand until I tell them the full story. Then they laugh, shaking their heads at Skyfreight's colossal mistake. Graham Huxley now runs a business strategy consultancy that specializes in founder relations. I hear his primary advice is to read contracts thoroughly, especially page 37. Tanya Voss launched a podcast about learning from corporate failures. Neither has ever acknowledged their role in what business schools now teach as the PathSync blunder. Skyfreight itself eventually recovered, though their stock has never returned to its previous heights. They've gone through 3 CEOs in the past 2 years, each promising to restore innovation to the core of our mission. I wish them well, genuinely. There are good people working there who deserve leadership that values their contributions. Meanwhile, PathSync continues to grow, not by acquisition or market domination, but by solving increasingly complex problems. We've expanded into healthcare logistics, helping hospitals predict supply needs and coordinate emergency responses. Our algorithms now help manage electricity grids, balancing renewable energy sources to reduce dependence on fossil fuels. And that basement apartment building I purchased? It's now home to 12 young engineers who formed their own incubator, working on everything from water purification to accessible prosthetics. I stop by monthly for their pizza and pitch night, offering feedback and occasionally funding. Last month, during one of these sessions, a young woman presented a novel approach to distributed computing that left me speechless. Her solution to a problem I'd been wrestling with for years came from her experience managing inventory at her family's small grocery store. I hired her on the spot. Because that's the secret most tech giants miss. Innovation rarely comes from homogeneous teams of similar backgrounds. It comes from diverse perspectives, from people who faced real problems and found unconventional solutions. People like me, who couldn't get past HR algorithms but refused to give up. People who know the value of their ideas, even when others don't see it yet. People who understand that sometimes the most powerful clause in any contract is the one nobody expects you to include. This morning, as I walked into our headquarters, I passed the wall where we display every patent PathSync has been granted. 127 and counting. Each represents a problem solved, a system improved, a future imagined. But the first patent, the one for the original routing algorithm that started in my freezing apartment, still holds a special place. It's framed alongside that $1 check, a permanent reminder that value and price are rarely the same thing. And that some things, once properly valued, are simply irreplaceable. My grandfather had another saying I think about often. The world makes way for people who know where they're going. For years, I wasn't sure where that was. Now I know it's not about a destination. It's about the path you choose and who you bring along with you. My path synchronizes with those who value innovation over ego, impact over income, and substance over style. People who understand that technology should serve humanity, not the other way around. So that's my story. From a burning router to a billion-dollar company. From being escorted out with a security guard to leading an innovation movement. All for the price of $1. And it was worth every penny. I've learned that true power doesn't come from titles or corner offices. It comes from creating something so valuable that even those who underestimate you can't function without it. From building systems that continue working perfectly even after you've been shown the door. Sometimes I wonder if Graham and Tanya ever realized the irony of their actions. In trying to minimize my influence, they amplified it beyond measure. In attempting to claim my creation as their own, they lost everything. In declaring me replaceable, they proved just how irreplaceable I truly was. There's a certain poetry to that kind of justice, the kind that doesn't require revenge or retaliation, just the natural consequences of undervaluing what matters most. As for me, I no longer fear being underestimated. In fact, I welcome it. Because there's incredible power in being the variable that others fail to account for. The clause they neglect to read. The woman they escort out without realizing she's walking toward her greatest triumph. So if you're reading this from your own basement apartment, debugging circuit boards while others party, fighting for recognition in a world that seems determined to overlook you, keep going. Your burning router moment is coming. And when it does, make sure you include Clause 27B. It might just be the best dollar you ever spend.